Well everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Google Pixel tablet and compare it against the iPad 10th generation and see which specific tablet you should go ahead and pick up. Now if you want to pick up either one of these tablets, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the same time. Now the iPad 10 is a little bit of a different tablet than the Google Pixel tablet. They're both kind of in the same realm, but the iPad 10 did come out a little bit earlier, so keep that in mind. It came out late last year, when the Pixel tablet came out mid-2023. Now the iPad 10th generation right now is costing $449. So that is actually not like the most amount of money to spend on a tablet, but it is kind of more expensive than the iPad 9th generation, which is kind of annoying. With the Google Pixel tablet, this specific tablet is costing about $499. So it's a little bit more expensive in the brand new market than the iPad 10, but a few things to keep in mind. One, with the Pixel tablet, for now, you are actually getting a charging dock built in that also has a speaker, which is kind of nice. Within the iPad 10, you're just getting the charger block and the charging cable. Other than that, I would say the Pixel tablet, in terms of like the features you're getting inside, like with the charging dock and whatnot, it's actually a really nice touch, and I'm really happy they actually threw that in. But I would have liked the Pixel tablet to actually at least like remove the dock and cheapen that price tag $50 for it to match the iPad 10. Right now the iPad 10 looks like the better deal because it is $50 cheaper, and that's something I wasn't expecting. I was expecting the Pixel tablet to be actually cheaper than the iPad 10, but that's not the way I guess Google is going to be going through with this route, which is kind of an interesting choice. Now on the front of both these tablets, they're really kind of around the same ballpark. So with the iPad 10, we have a 10.9-inch liquid retina IPS LCD panel. It's a very high resolution, 1640p in a way, and it's a very good looking display. You have a very small amount of bezel around the whole entire iPad 10, which I think looks pretty nice. And like I mentioned before, I think Apple did a pretty good job with that panel on that iPad. The only thing going on with the iPad 10 that I'm not the biggest fan of is that, the Apple Pencil 1 support. I feel like on the bottom they should have given us the ability of having Apple Pencil 1 or Apple Pencil 2, but they never really did that, and I've always found that a little weird. With the Pixel tablet on the front of that specific device, we have a 10.95-inch IPS LCD panel. So it's only slightly bigger than the iPad, iPad 10. And I don't know if it's the biggest deal in the world. I think you're really not going to notice it day to day. So I think that is just one of those things to keep in mind. But I do like how I like how Google did give us a little bit of a bigger panel, but it's a very, very small difference. You are getting, I guess, white bezel on all the Pixel tablets, which is kind of an interesting choice again. And other than that, I think it's a pretty good looking display. But I do think with the iPad 10, it kind of gives me the impression that it's a little bit nicer. But I like the Pixel tablet, and it's overall a pretty good looking display. Now, the camera modules are a little bit different on both, clearly. But with the iPad 10, the USB-C port is at the very bottom of that specific tablet, on the left side if you're holding a landscape mode. But the Pixel tablet charging port is on the bottom, but it's on kind of like the landscape mode bottom, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a little bit of a different charging structure. The Pixel tablet is meant to be used like kind of like a laptop screen, versus the iPad 10 you can use it either way. Flat sides kind of on both, but the Pixel tablet's probably a little bit more rounded. And on the back you are getting, I guess, an aluminum back on both, which is nice. But I feel like the aluminum back on the iPad 10 feels more premium. I don't know why Google decided to go down this route. The Pixel tablet reminds me so much of the Pixel 5. It reminds me a lot of that design, and I'm not too sure why they went down this route. I think the Pixel tablet doesn't feel as premium as the iPad 10, which is very weird. I feel like Apple, did a really good job with the iPad 10 build quality, but then when it comes down to the Pixel tablet, they just went through and just gave us such a stranger experience with it. I'm not really too sure why they did this. So I'm really hoping I'm hoping Google goes through and kind of improves the build quality a little bit of their Pixel tablets going forward. But as of right now, I think the iPad 10 kind of wins in that specific area. Now from the camera perspective, there's not really too much to compare here because both these phones aren't really supposed to, or both these tablets aren't supposed to be like camera heavy featured, tablets. But I will tell you, the iPad 10 is going to be giving you the better camera overall. You're getting a 12 megapixel front and back camera on the iPad 10, where in the Pixel tablet it's 8 megapixels front and back. You can only do 1080p video on the front and the back of the Pixel tablet, whereas on the iPad 10 you can do 4K at 60 on the back, and you can do 1080p at 60 on the front. That is a really big difference to keep in mind here. You are getting a far better camera on the iPad 10 than on the Pixel tablet. And again, I do feel like Apple, really kind of did a good job with the iPad 10 camera overall. For the Pixel tablet, I have no idea why they gave us that type of camera quality. They should have given us better camera quality here, but also this kind of furthers my theory that this tablet was supposed to come out when the Pixel 5 came out, because back in 2020, that would have made a little bit more sense. Okay, 1080p camera on the back and the front, okay, it's not a big difference, it's not a big deal. But now in 2023, especially for a tablet like this that costs $500, that's kind of competing with the iPad 10 and the Galaxy Tab S8, this tablet better be able to do 4K at 60 at least on the back. 1080p at 30 on the front is okay, but 4K at 60 on the back is like needed. And the fact that this tablet doesn't have it is actually a pretty big deal, and it's very weird that Google decided to drop this and not give us that type of feature, in my opinion. Very, very weird thing. That in and of itself was a really, really big turnoff for me personally. In terms of software updates, they're on different versions of Android and iOS or iPad OS, but I would probably tell you that the Pixel tablet and the iPad 10 may end up lasting around the same time, because the iPad 10 does have a chipset that's not quite the newest one, but the Android, the Pixel tablet, the Google Tensor G2 chipset is technically the latest one from Google. I could see these two tablets lasting around the same time, but actually possibly a little bit more. The Pixel tablet could end up probably not lasting as long as the iPad 10 if it really came down to it, but both are going to be very good when it comes down to it too. So I wouldn't really worry about software updates on either one of these devices anytime soon. In terms of performance, the iPad 10 has that Apple A14 Bionic chip inside of it with 4GB of RAM, with the Pixel tablet it has that Google Tensor G2 chipset inside with basically 8GB of RAM. Now keep in mind, just because the Pixel tablet has more RAM doesn't mean that it's going to be performing way better, but I do feel like the Pixel tablet does a really good job with its chipset that it has. I'm not the biggest fan of these Mali GPUs that Google's pretty much using for the whole point of their Pixels right now, which I don't really know why they're doing that, but I do think you can get decent performance from these Mali devices, and a lot of these applications and games and emulators that I did used to play are now supporting Mali GPUs a lot more now, and they're starting up basically the Mali development, which is really nice. So I think there's definitely some improvements going on there. I think the iPad 10 performance though is very, very good. I personally always felt like Apple has done a really good job with basically their Apple ecosystem and with their developers. Of course, things cost a lot and some developers aren't happy, but there's a lot of applications that are optimized for these iPads. So it's not like with the Pixel tablet where there's like 20,000 different devices to make, applications for. With Apple devices, there's really not a crazy amount. So you're really in a really good system where something like the iPad 10 can really just theoretically, even if it's 3 or 5 years old or whatever, like you're still going to be getting really good performance from the type of device depending on those applications. So that is something that's really nice too. Now at the end of the day, the device like a iPad 10 is still going to be in a really, really good spot when it comes down to the performance of that type of device. So that kind of covers it up there too. And to be honest, I really do think that the Pixel tablet is probably going to be, I don't think it would be the first tablet I'd recommend people to buy. I think the iPad 10 makes a lot of sense, and I do think that is probably the iPad that when I think back to it, it is a really solid iPad that I like a lot. But the Pixel tablet, I think, is kind of in this more interesting spot where I feel like in the next coming months, if this thing depreciates in value a lot more, then that's going to be a really, really interesting, tablet. But I think the iPad 10 is probably the one I'd recommend more people to buy. So that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.